Well, hello everybody and welcome on board Regent Splendor for another live. We're at sea today. As the notice says above, the Wi-Fi may be a little bit erratic. I've done tests today and certainly the audio was pretty good and the video seemed fine as well. Now we're sort of heading, it's about noon here and there's a big brunch thing on today and lots going on, so I guess hopefully a lot of people won't be online, so the broadband will be good as well. Loads and loads of questions coming in and I will get stuck into those as quickly as possible. A couple of housekeeping things. I've already said the Wi-Fi issue. If you are asking a question, write the word question, which would be absolutely fantastic. For those of you who don't know, this is the trip that I'm on at the moment, so we're probably, I guess, somewhere around about here heading towards Miami. We're to disembark tomorrow. What else can I tell you? Any other critical things? If you're watching this afterwards, thanks very much for watching it afterwards. I know a couple of people who are on the ship are planning to watch it afterwards because you have to upgrade to the streaming Wi-Fi to be able to, log into this. So a couple of people are going to be waiting till afterwards, and met loads and loads of people, which is fantastic as always. What else can I tell you? I was going to talk about Patreon, but I won't do that. I'm going to get stuck straight into the questions. So let's start with, in fact, sort of a technology kind of question. As I said, you can ask me anything about this trip or whatever you want to do. So Don is asking the question, do you use a VPN at sea? And if so, which one do you like? I'm considering Nord or another to stream. So Don, absolutely, I use a VPN. Now, many cruise lines under the basic Wi-Fi. So on Regent, you have basic Wi-Fi included. So I actually can do 4 devices in the included fare. That's because it's slightly linked to some of your status. However, the VPN will not work at the basic one, and I know many other cruise lines have on. So you have to upgrade to the streaming one. So many cruise lines kind of require you to have their streaming Wi-Fi option. So I do use it. I use Express VPN. I might actually I'll put a link to that. I've got a affiliate code. Maybe I'll put a link in the notes of this. But I found ExpressVPN works really well. It works across my phone, my laptop, my iPad. Now, I mostly use a VPN so that I can keep up to date with shows. So I'm a big fan of Strictly Come Dancing, the Great British Bake Off, shows like that. Or if there's things like a series I'm watching. So I use a VPN. A little tip on VPN, by the way, if you are looking to stream, is it's best to use a browser. So for example, if I watch BBC iPlayer or I watch Channel 4 or whatever in the UK, if I use their app, the app has some geolocating or something in, so it knows that you're abroad, even with a VPN on. But if you're using a browser, then the VPN works. Now, someone else asked me about Mark working. So Mark's actually not on this trip with me, but he has in the past used VPN to be able to kind of connect to some of his work stuff. But definitely it's worked pretty well, and I've been watching quite a lot of shows. Also, the ability to download some shows has worked pretty well. So ExpressVPN is the one that I watch. Now, Patrick's got a very topical question around, has any cruise company tried to silence you at any port or even react positive to any criticism that you've had? Now, I want to show you something because this is very topical. The reason I'm saying it's topical is the 2 guys who have the YouTube channel Young at Sea. I don't know if you can see that there. Anyway, they're currently on P&O ship. And this morning they got up early. They go early and video their ship tour, so when no one's around. And they got stopped filming because a passenger had complained about them filming. Now, they are pretty diligent about going out and filming kind of the crack of dawn before people are up and about. So they were originally told by someone, I think, from guest services, they weren't allowed to video anything. So they're a little bit upset about that. Then a little bit later, someone from guest services came to see them to say that wasn't true. They could film. So certainly you might have seen some other stuff in the past where Ben and David, for example, have had issues with filming. Now, I haven't, I know your question is slightly different, but to date, I haven't been stopped filming on board, but it's something that I'm very aware of, partly how I film, but I'm kind of aware, I think, as there's more and more channels, there's been some really bad behavior by some people. Some streamers got thrown off Royal Caribbean recently. They basically ended up on Punch Up, doing live streaming on the fly. And I think with more and more people launching channels, sometimes relatively small channels, everyone's going to start somewhere, that people are perhaps more sensitized or concerned. So I feel that there could be more issues coming in that regard, perhaps where cruise lines are more restrictive or something. Also understanding, of course, the real influence of YouTube channels. So in terms of have any company tried to silence me, certainly that hasn't been my case to date, touch wood. And I think it could be, because I get asked this, in fact, a couple of people asked me on this trip. Now, I'm not sure whether it's because I'm fortunate enough, having done this a while and my channel's quite big, whether there's a sense of actually we don't want to stop me doing anything, because also they know that I have quite a big audience to talk about cruise lines trying to silence me in any way. I don't know if that's a factor, but also I think maybe because I do try to be as balanced as possible. So if I have a criticism, I will normally talk about what other people have thought, or where people disagree with me, or what I think they could do that's better. So I try to make it either constructive. So perhaps, and I know people I bump into, most both passengers and crew that I meet talk about they like the channel because I am very balanced. Obviously, people don't agree with what I'm saying all the time, which would be crazy if they did, but they like the sense of balance. So even crew members and stuff talk to me about how they like the balance. So maybe cruise lines are more comfortable because they know that I'm not there to do a hatchet job. In terms of positive, I haven't really had that either. The cruise lines don't really engage with me very much. So I don't do, as you know, press trips. I pay for my own trips. Well, you guys pay for it because you watch my videos and it earns me revenue, which I then use to buy cruises. But so I don't tend to engage with them. I still get asked by cruise lines if I'll go, but largely speaking, they don't engage with me. Occasionally they will engage with me a little bit because they follow me on social media, so they know if I'm on a particular trip or something like that. I am rethinking whether I need to do more talking to the cruise line before I get on a ship, so I can avoid any issues that the young at sea crowd have. But a long rambling answer to your question, but I think that's a pretty interesting one. Heidi has a question about the Nile. There we are, it's coming up. Whoops, disappeared. Slight lag there. So Heidi, I'd love to do a bucket trip to Egypt down the Nile. How long is a good length of time, and what recommendations do you have for months to go, and tour companies or cruise companies? So Heidi, the Egypt is fantastic. I did Egypt years ago as a land-based trip when I was like maybe 30 years ago or something. And then about 2 years ago, I did a river cruise. And in reality, what most of the companies do that operate river cruises have a land-based and a river cruise kind of itinerary, if you like. So I did with Ama Waterways. So we had a couple of days in Cairo, seeing things, of course, like the museum now. The museum's open. When I was there, it was the old museum, the pyramids, a little bit of some of the sites just outside Cairo. Then we flew down to Luxor, boarded the ship, then sailed down to Aswan, etc. Saw sites, turned around, came back. So I think that was like a 10-day, almost heading towards 2 weeks. And that for me is ideal because you do want to spend a couple of days in Cairo as part of the package. It's particularly now the new museum's open. You probably want to spend almost a day there, or a good slug of a day. So I would encourage you to look at things like Viking, do a very nice trip there, very nice ships. Ama Waterways was pretty good. I know Tauk, if you're US, Tauk is a very reputable, popular combined. They do river cruising and touring. Abercrombie and Kent, if you're more, well, I kind of guess they're kind of international as well. But those sort of companies, so those companies which perhaps have a more Western slant to them, they probably understand that. Now, in reality, all of the ships that they use, from my understanding anyway, is they need to be operated by Egyptians. So you'll find all the crew on board is local, captain and so on. So I think that's part of the rule. It's a bit like the Galapagos, as I understand it. Now, don't quote me entirely on that because I might be slightly wrong, but it's very much so. So I would look at those particular things. Now, in terms of time to go, you want to avoid the summer months because it gets incredibly hot. Now, what the lines will do in the summer months is you'll get up very early to go to the sites. Now, I went in April, so it wasn't kind of the hot time. And April was great because we didn't have to get up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to go sightseeing. And even at midday, it was not unbearably hot. So that's a good time to go. I had a great time going in April. So that's the sort of time you want to look at. You don't want to be going June, July kind of time. It's just unbearably hot and uncomfortable. So hopefully that answers that one there. Lou's here. I saw Heike was here as well. Patrick asking a question around group cruises. So Patrick's right, I've done a couple of group cruises. My next group cruise is at the end of January, a 2-week Holland America, Zeta Dam, Panama Canal, where we have 70 odd people, not 70 odd people, just over 70 people rather than odd people. And so do a fundraiser. It is very tiring. Absolutely. It is, because although I was probably more stressed the first time, what I realized with group cruises is people come on group cruises, obviously, because they like, they want to connect with me, but they also want to, there's kind of a common theme because people watch the channel. So I was worried that I was going to have to kind of provide entertainment and organize people 24 hours a day or whatever, how long people are awake. And I realized actually you can just let go and the group finds its own natural way. So it was less draining from that perspective. But obviously it is a little bit draining in the run up to it because you want to make sure you've got the program right. It's quite difficult with the cruise lines because obviously you agree stuff landside, but in reality it's all up to what the ship agrees, and the ship is only really looking at the next cruise very close to the cruise. So it's a little bit stressful because you don't necessarily get everything locked down. Of course, you want to be able to tell people, here's the welcome desk, here's what time we're doing this, here's the meeting rooms. You want to give people schedules. So it's a little bit stressful in the run up. So we have a couple of things, for example, that we've requested for that group cruise, and they're saying, well, we can only confirm maybe a week before. So that sort of thing's a little bit draining and worrying, and can you get on the ship in time and blah blah blah. I do, because I want things to go really well. I did find it quite tiring because I want to make sure that I'm engaging with people and so on. But it was kind of rewarding in that, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this channel lives or die based on people watching it and supporting it, and particularly because I don't do any free trips and stuff, I'm very reliant on people watching to then generate revenue so I can keep cruising to make more content and so on. So I feel like it was kind of giving back to the community. Now it's not a profit-making thing. I'm sort of out of pocket from it, but that's fine because it's kind of giving back to the community, just the way the finances work, because I don't charge a premium and charge for things. So it's been fantastic meeting people. Also, what's been fantastic is people connecting. So even from the very first group cruise, I had a WhatsApp group. I've never closed that down because people have been still talking to each other. People are actually going on other trips together. They've been meeting up on cruises or when they're traveling. So that's been also very rewarding from that perspective. Tom, you appear to enjoy your Caribbean adventure. I do absolutely enjoy coming to the Caribbean, particularly now in the UK. There's this big storm hitting it. I was looking at the temperatures when I get back. It's like 1 degree to 6 degrees, -1. It's cloudy, it's rainy. And of course, coming here, it's beautiful sun. It's 27, 28 degrees outside. I love the sea. I love snorkeling. So absolutely, I always enjoy it. Anyway, we're looking to do a Tauk small ship cruise for 2027. Tauk charters Ponant, Windstar, and Silversea. Can you comment on the plus or minus on each line? Okay, so first of all, I mean, the good thing about those three is they're all either sort of an ultra luxury side, and they all are, as you say, relatively small ships. Now, a lot of it hinges a little bit around which ship they've got. So I think I'm right in saying that Tauk are probably going to be chartering what is known as their, I think it's called sister ships, like La L'Oréal and so on. So I've been on La L'Oréal. I'm going on one of their sister ships to Antarctica. So they use those ships down in Antarctica and here. They do have some very sleek, more modern generation of ships. So if there are those ships, I would love to go on those. They are also very upmarket, very slick. So if it's the ones that sort of have they sort of like they've got like what's a sort of a stretched U design, very sleek, black kind of stuff. But Ponant, because it's being chartered by Tauk, one of the limitations of Tauk is often there'll be a very high percentage of French travelers, and so you never know how many English speakers are going to be, so you need to be comfortable with that. But on a charter, obviously they're going to have, it'll be all in English, if and so it'll all be kind of like-minded passengers, if you like, probably largely US. So Ponant is very slick. The food, generally, obviously not surprising, being a French line, it tends to be sort of French focused. So I don't know how much they adapt that when they do a charter. Now, Windstar, I don't know. I'm assuming if it's the Caribbean, they're probably using their like Star Breeze and so on, which are the old seaborne ships which have been stretched. Now, I do like those ships. They're not as luxurious as the Ponant and Silversea ships, but they have a charm about them, but they are a little bit more dated. But Windstar it's a much more relaxed line. The food's pretty good. Cabins are comfortable. I quite like Windstar. It has a nice feel about it. Now, I like going on it because the passengers are very destination focused. I'm guessing going on a talc charter that would be the same. Now, Silversea, a lot of it hinges on which of the Silversea ships you're going on. So of these three, Silversea is probably the most in the ultra luxury camp, although Ponant is sort of there as well in reality. But Silversea has a very wide, much wider than Ponant or Windstar does, choice of dining options. Now, it does depend which class of ship you're on, whether it's the Whisper Shadow class or the Muse class or Spirit or the new Nova class. So a lot of the experience will hinge on which ship it is. But Silversea, you will, every cabin has a butler, so that makes it a little bit more kind of luxurious. That I don't know what the talc inclusions will or won't be, but Silversea generally of these three probably has the best overall cuisine, I would say. If you're on the newer ships, they have the salt program, which is very immersive in the region. So hopefully that kind of tells you a little bit, depend on Ponant and Silversea, the type of which ship they're actually chartering. Hopefully the Wi-Fi gods are doing. So Heike, good to see you, Heike. I've actually been following Heike, who's on Queen Elizabeth. She's in the Caribbean at the moment, heading back as we are. So Claudia's here. Tom saying, yeah, beats the London November weather. That's pretty good. Here we are. Kinsa print. Just write the word question so I don't miss the question. So let's have a look. Kinsa Spirit is asking, how good is Wi-Fi on the ship? So I probably answered a little bit above, but the included Wi-Fi is pretty good in terms of surfing and it's a pretty good thing. Although the speed, I ran a speed check. The speed says it's very slow, but what it's been performing as has been fine. So that's interesting. But the speed has been like 10 or whatever. But certainly the streaming Wi-Fi is pretty good. So it's Starlink. Now the cruise lines have shifted to Starlink. Wi-Fi generally is pretty good, and they don't seem to be squeezing that. But clearly, what they've done on the basic Wi-Fi, which is including the fare, is you can't get onto anything that's vaguely streaming related at all. So even if you want to do, I'm trying to think about it. So even doing FaceTime calls was more challenging. I've done it on the streaming one, for example, but it's been pretty good. I've been able to VPN shows and so on. Let's have a look. So Doug's just got off recently. So hopefully SL, which ship or line has been consistently good over the last year, some Wi-Fi. So in reality, because all the lines have moved to Starlink, they're all pretty good. The one which has been the most disappointing for me, which was interesting, was on Viking. So Viking included Wi-Fi. Now they've moved to Starlink, but it was very problematic, and they don't give you any option to buy an upgrade to streaming. So when I was on Viking, I couldn't do any streaming at all. So I couldn't run a live stream. I couldn't stream shows or anything, and there was no option at all. So for me, that was kind of the biggest miss, which also seems. I know Viking don't want to sort of nickel and dime and charge and stuff, but across all the other ships, I found with Starlink, it's good. Now, the problem is that many lines still require you to do if you want to stream, you have to pay, and it can be quite pricey. So my little tip is pre-buy it. So for example, on here, I think it was $19.99 to do the upgrade, but in fact, on Embarkation they had a half price off offer. But I've been looking for some of my cruises next year, and a lot of them have quite big discounts if you pre-book the upgrade. So, for example, I've got 200 America trips next year, one which is the group cruise. Then the month after, I'm on Amsterdam in South America. And both of those, I've got Have It All, which includes basic Wi-Fi, but they're offering a very good discount to get the streaming one. So that's my little tip there. Claudia, do you recommend Octopus card to get around Hong Kong? Will be there post India, Sri Lanka, Thailand cruise. So Claudia, I do recommend getting the card. Now, what I would say is, I don't know if you've got an iPhone, but if you look on iPhone, if you go to Wallet, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up here. I also need to be careful I don't show you all my cards. But if you've got an iPhone and you go into Wallet, the wallet app, what I discovered is you've got a thing which is a plus. So there you've got like a plus sign. If you push the plus sign, you can then add, and it's just a travel card. If you go on a travel card, you'll find, for example, for Hong Kong, you'll see you can actually sign up for Octopus on your iPhone. So I used that. I loaded up on Wallet, and it was fantastic. You know, I could jump on those thin buses, the metro, everything. So yes, it's a very long way of answering, but that was a little tip that I discovered. What had happened is I'd been in Japan before, because I was going from Tokyo and I was ending up in Hong Kong. That's not true. I was in Manila, but I went to Hong Kong, and I had gone and bought a card and all that nonsense. Then I realized that I read somewhere that you could do it. So by the time I got to Hong Kong, I'd done that. Let's have a look. Not app 8680. Can serious injury, illness on board cut short a long repositioning cruise short, like some Antarctic cruises? Okay, so for those who don't know, if one of the things that when you get on an Antarctic cruise, because you're so far from hospital, they do stress that you should be extremely cautious, because if someone needs a hospital, their only option is to turn around and sail all the way back to a shire or whatever. Now, in some cases, they could go back to King George Island and airlift people out, but basically you're going to cut it short. So when I was in Antarctica last time, I was on Endeavour, and there was an Aurora ship. I think they're called AE Expeditions now. And we rendezvoused with them because they had someone on board, I'm not sure it was a crew or a passenger, that they thought had broken something. I can't remember, maybe an arm or leg or whatever. And they weren't sure whether they needed to, if it was broken, they were going to have to curtail the trip and sail back to a shire so they could get hospital treatment. But Endeavour had much more advanced medical equipment, X-ray and stuff. So we met up so they could transfer the passenger across. Now, the good news was it wasn't broken and they didn't have to do it. Now, on a repositioning cruise, in reality, it's less likely, because if you look at the routing often of repositioning cruises, one of the things I discovered, for example, with the Queen Mary 2 and the QE2 is when they're sailing across from Southampton to New York and vice versa, part of the route is sort of designed that it is within range of an evacuation helicopter. Now, on those repositioning cruises, the idea would be that you know, normally on an Atlantic cruise, they may be able to divert towards islands. Now, I know there's a middle stretch where there's a point in time where you're equidistant from turning back or going forwards. So they will normally try and head towards an island. Now, what's interesting is ships can generally go a lot faster than they sail. Now, ships tend to sail slower because you burn less fuel. So, for example, with the old repositionings, you know, the ship can do it in 5 days. So QE2, Queen Mary 2 can actually do the crossing in 4 or 5 days, but they take 7 days and some days 8 days, because going slower burns less fuel. It's much less costly. So ships can also sort of put their foot down a little bit, but it's not as dramatic because they can normally get within distance of a helicopter. So, for example, it has happened where, in fact, on Queen Mary 2, or sometimes ships heading on Transatlantics, will sort divert so they're within range of an evacuation helicopter, or even, I guess, sometimes another ship. So hopefully that answers. That's interesting. Jeffrey's never been able to get the work VPN to work, so that's interesting. So I guess there may be an issue. You're right. I can see why, because we used to have, I remember in my corporate days, before I retired from that, we had a very specific VPN thing. So it wasn't a VPN, it was a specific one. So that's interesting to know. So that's a good note. So those people who require one of those little specific, well, I guess probably not plug-in anymore. I'm saying since I last in corporate life, it's probably a digital one, but in my day, it was like a little pluggy thing. So that's good to know. So to watch out for that. So that's a good watch out. Something about the padded headboard. Let's have a look. Chris, good to see you here. You mentioned your recent luxury, ultra luxury reviews, critics challenging new fee structures and apply pricing squeezes. Is it a trend you confirm? Also in other segments like premium. So let me just make sure I'm digesting this. New fee structures that imply pricing squeezes is a trend you could. Okay, so you're right. I mean, what we're seeing in the, and I guess you specifically we're talking about Silversea, which is the most topical one at the moment, where Silversea changed their structures. They used to have door to door, they had port to port, and then they had their last minute one. I think it was called Essential. And then they've changed that to create all-inclusive plus, all-inclusive. I think they might call the new one last minute fares. And in that process, they took out things like excursions. They changed some of the rules around refundable, non-refundable deposits. Now, it's a little bit hard, Chris, to tell exactly if it's a price increase or not, because they did it at the same time as launching a whole lot of promotions. We're heading into Black Friday. So I've seen lots of chat amongst the Silversea group about people talking about, is this a price piece? Or are they seeing higher prices and so on? We've also seen with Oceania, them changing their different programs from O-Life and taking things out. And they brought in a new perk, which almost cancel out a perk that you had with loyalty and so on. So, I mean, it's hard to unravel it. I mean, personally, why would you, if you, the skeptical side of me, my sort of marketing life, I guess, would be, is, obviously there's a huge, still a lot of cost pressures on cruise lines. Inflation is still relatively high around the world. Cost pressures are going up. There's also demand to keep fares down. So I'm assuming a lot of these things are probably hiding some sense of cost increases, because we as passengers are obsessed with headline fare. So I think that's the case. I mean, I think what we're seeing by category is slightly different things, Chris. So, for example, we're seeing more in the mass market side. So, the resort lines like Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, they are doing it slightly differently. So what they're doing is they're going to shorter cruises. So people are still saying, well, I can go away for 3 or 4 days for X, 100 or whatever. So the price per night is probably a little bit higher, but the outgoing is not as great. But also what they're doing is they're sort of stripping out things. So Norwegian, for example, have stripped out printing daily programs or once a day service. So there's each category is doing things slightly differently. They, with the all-inclusive packages and the premium side, celebrity always included, used to include gratuities, and that got taken out. Virgin have, in the premium category, they used to have certain things included, like all foods included, gratuities are included, Wi-Fi is included. Now they've broken their fares out. You can buy different packages. So I think we're seeing kind of a playing around with pricing. It's a little bit like we're seeing, I guess, certainly it's a big topic in the UK, is shrinkflation with consumer goods, where what's happening is, washing powder is, instead of being 500 grams, is 450 grams, but the price has stayed the same. Or a chocolate bar is now so many grams less, or toilet roll, instead of having sheets it has, is having less. So let's have a look. Yes, someone referring to Ben and David. Someone's talking about, I really like this cabin. This, I think I mentioned in the last live stream. So this is what's known as a Serenity cabin. On other ships, when I've been on, it was called a Superior cabin. So basically what you've got is you have a veranda and a deluxe veranda. Then you've got Serenity. Then you've got 7 grades above that. So I think Serenity is the main the main group. And what I like about the Serenity cabin is it's a little bit bigger, but you have the bed facing the windows. The deluxe locations are less good, and it's a little bit smaller, and the bed's that more to show. But I really like this layout. It's a really good size. But once you get to concierge, you get like a pre-stay hotel and coffee machines and things like that. But I don't really need that as such. Although I do sometimes think, it would be nice to have a coffee machine. But I really like these cabins. They're a great size, and yeah, I really like them. It's a nice feel. Sheldon asking, yes, I've been on Sun Princess. I have 2 videos around it. So if you look on the channel, if you look on the channel, if you just search Princess or Sun Princess, 2 videos will come up. One of which is a look at the move, as you say, into the mega ship, the pros and cons of it, and why diehard Princess cruises are a little bit more mixed on it, because it's a very different look to any of the other princess ships, and a dramatically different layout. So some traditional princess don't warm to it as much. And I talk about who does and who doesn't. So I've been on that. The second video I did based on that is looking at the Sanctuary collection. So as you know, you can book certain, I think it's deluxe camp balconies through to obviously their big swanky suites, which then give you access to the Sanctuary Club restaurant. I think it's called the Sanctuary Restaurant, the Sanctuary Club pool deck, and if you have a suite, into the Sanctuary Lounge. So I've done a video around that as well. For me personally, I wasn't a massive fan of Sun Princess, but largely because personally as a cruiser, I like smaller ships, but I like going on the big ships so I can cover them for the channel. But for me, it was just a little bit too big. But actually what was very interesting is this ship, people that I spoke to on the ship, particularly who were younger, particularly people with families, absolutely love the ship. You know, they love the layout, they love the vibe, they love the masses of venues, the entertainment, the dining options, and so on. So that was interesting. So it was definitely a very vibrant ship. It's very, there's lots going on. The daily program's packed. The atrium has always got something going on, so it's quite boisterous and noisy, but it's like a lot of energy there. They have lots of entertainment going on, lots of stuff going on. The Sanctuary collection was actually very nice as well. Oren Freeman, do you have a sense of whether or not you get more bang for your buck with a ship within a ship versus ultra luxury ship experience? So great challenge. So I've actually made, because I get asked similar, I haven't actually been asked that specific question as much. Now in the videos, Oren, that I do about the ship within ships, the one I did about the Haven and the one I did about the Yacht Club, I talk a little bit about this, so you might want to also watch those, but I'll tell you my perspective. So for those, I guess everyone knows what a ship within a ship is. That's in varying degrees. So if it's the Haven, it's literally a ship within a ship. So all of the cabins, the restaurant, the bar, the pool deck, you have to, is in a section. So like on the Prima class ships, it's across a couple of decks, but you need a car to get in there. The same on Celebrity. On the newer ships, it's very much an enclosed space, although the cabins are actually not all in the same space. So some of it varies. So you could argue like Cunard Queen's Grill, which is sort of ship within a ship, not, yeah, everything's spread out around the ship, so it's not in one enclosed space. So what's important, Oren, is in reality, it's the same price, largely speaking. So if you go in the Retreat, it's going to cost you the same as going on like this is the same. So what you'll tend to get over your cabin will be a little bit bigger, but you know, you could be spending up to $1,000 a night or something like that in the Retreat or in the Haven easily, and that's what you can spend here. Now you can actually come on this for a lower price, you know, with promotions and repositioning stuff. So in reality, though, the difference is, I think, around what it is you want from a cruise. So I think the big plus of the ship within a ship experience is if you're the sort of cruiser who says, I want a big ship experience, I want big production shows. So if you're going on Norwegian, say in the Haven, you know that they've got these massive big production shows. They've got Broadway shows. They've got like amazing shows. They've got loads of live entertainment venues with bands, you know, lots of different types of music. You've got big quiz shows. So they'll do, you know, a deal or no deal kind of thing, but it's a whole big interactive thing. You'll have a huge range of specialty dining. Now, admittedly, even with most of those, you pay extra for those, but you're going to have all that stuff to tap into, as well as having your own. But you also have an ability to retreat and have a little bit more quiet, or be pampered a bit more with your butler or whatever. You've got, and the same if you go on Celebrity or you go on MSC Yacht Club. So MSC Yacht Clubs, you know, the ships are boisterous, they're noisy, and the Yacht Club gives you some retreat and pampering and stuff. When you come on ultra luxury, you know, for the same sort of price, you're foregoing all of that stuff. So the shows here, you know, there's 4 singers, 4 dancers. It's kind of themed around, you know, Motown or whatever. You have a couple of, you know, dining options, but not the same choice. So you're looking for a quieter, calmer experience. So it's much quieter. It's much more laid back. It's about not queuing for anything. So you're less bothered about the entertainment or the pros of the big ship stuff. Also, what's important is, not depending on the region you go to, you'll find you're sometimes going to more out of the way places. So if you take the Caribbean, those big ship within a ship ships have to go to, only go to a certain amount of ports. Whereas here now, this ship on this itinerary, of course, went to those ports because they're there. But we also went to St. Bart's, where you have to tender in. We went a little bit further south, where it's a little bit, where it's less busy. So you can. The Caribbean is not a great example, but if you do the Greek islands on an ultra luxury ship, you're going to go to lots of very small islands because you only got a couple hundred people that you need to tender to and fro. Big ship won't go there. So it's a little bit around the experience you want. So if bang for your buck, you define bang for your buck as I want to still go and see massive shows. So you go in Royal Caribbean, you're going to have aqua shows, ice shows. If that's what you want, you're going to get more bang for your buck. But if you toss it up price for price, you'll end up being sort of the same. Now, obviously, on the big ship within ship, you have to show your card much more. Here, the only time you use your card is to go in and outside your door. When you do excursions, there's no queue, smaller groups. So that's it. A lot of it's around that. Hopefully, I've explained that well. Yes, so this is an issue. So coming back to the point I was making earlier about people being stopped filming. So I think this is for me, I think is a big point. Is I think us as YouTubers and content creators need to really think about being intrusive or not being intrusive. So the gimbal and camera situation is either you need to be filming if people who do very beautiful shoots and like Richard and Helen stuff, they will film on on port days when everyone's out, very in the morning. So they aren't doing that stuff. They aren't walking into the dining room filming. They're being very kind of discreet about it. I'm going to show you. Where's it gone? I'm actually going to do a little. I use a much more discreet. So I use this more, which is Osmo Pocket 3. So this is the camera that I use for most of my filming. So this is much more kind of discreet, much less intrusive. I use my phone a bit more. So definitely my videos are probably not as, the B-roll and stuff is perhaps not as amazing as some of people who use those bigger cameras. But I feel we need to be more discreet. And I worry that the gimbal out, particularly when there's stuff going on. I think the time for the gimbal, a big camera, is on a port day when no one's around, when all the rest of, like, you go and film all the restaurants when no one's in them, kind of thing. Let's have a look. Joe, I booked my first transatlantic cruise for March. Are there any major differences between Mediterranean, Caribbean, and transatlantic sailings beside the added sea days? So Joe, last week I had a video which will be perfect to have a look at, which is around repositioning cruises. So take a look at that. I'll dive into that. But the key difference, I would say, is you'll find, obviously, you're going to see fewer ports, fewer places. And what you're going to have, Joe, is, if you're going on a Mediterranean cruise in the season, or you're going to a Caribbean cruise in the season, you're probably going to have incredible weather. So, for example, the weather that we've had here has been sunny and gorgeous all the time because we're now sort of in the season. On a transatlantic cruise, you're going to be going from a lousy weather in one part towards the good, better weather. So, for example, in March, March in the Med is not yet great weather. So if you're heading from the Caribbean, it's still quite nice weather, but you're going to be heading progressively into worse and worse weather. So you might start out on the deck, but by sort of midway or so, you're not be out on the deck, or vice versa. So for example, when I did a repositioning cruise, which went from Alaska to Japan, the first sort of 7 or 8 days of it, it was cold. It was jackets out. In fact, there was no one. You couldn't sit out of the pool. In fact, the deck was closed for a while. It was too cold, too windy. Then by the time we got to Japan, the weather had gone. Now, obviously, we're doing a Japan cruise in the season or the Med, whatever. Obviously, the weather might be not great. So that's one of the key differences. Also, what you'll find, Joe, on the transatlantics, because they're longer, generally speaking, most cruises, certainly in the Med and the Caribbean, are really designed around 7-day cruises in the season. So the program, a lot of the ships are set up for 7-day rotations. So they'll have maybe to 10 days at a push. So they'll have, production shows to cover basically 7 days, or entertainment program, or even menus that are sort of around a 7-day to 10-day rotation. So when you go on those transatlantics, often there's kind of more filler stuff going on. So you'll find, for example, they might get the production guys or gals singers to do their own little cabaret show, or they'll bring on some more guest artists. Also, what they often use the transatlantics for is to try things out. So if they're bringing some new shows on, they'll launch those on the transatlantics. So they have time to kind of thrash them out. If they need a little bit of work not going into a dry dock, they might do some refits and stuff. So you might have some of that kind of going on as well. But take a look at the video. Probably there's loads of things that I've left out there. Claudia has another question. About to forgo ship Wi-Fi for the Verizon International plan and commit to GigSky 30-day Asia cruise land to text, post, and scroll on Insta, audiobooks, podcast, maps, hotspot laptop, reliable warnings. So Claudia, I've only done trials of GigSky and it's been pretty good. Now, a lot of it, what I would double check, Claudia, is which ship you're on, and just double check if the ship, which nowadays almost inevitably has Starlink, because my understanding, and so this is not gospel, is GigSky will then ride on the back of Starlink mostly, or it relies on more traditional satellite connections. But if your ship is listed, so GigSky lists all the ships, but certainly you would find, because you're not doing heavy streaming, so you're doing the Insta, the audiobooks, podcasts, that sort of stuff, it should be fine. Certainly when I did the tests, I did I do the tests on my Japan cruise? I think I was using GigSky on my Japan cruise. I know I did it on the Canadian cruise for sure, but it should be, yes. But let me know if it doesn't. Again, just write the word question so I don't miss the question. Here's one I definitely did miss, which is from Conrad CE. I think that's probably Conrad CE, or it's not. If I've got your combo wrong. What do you make of Norwegian Cruise Line's recent announcement that they're reducing the number of solar cabins in reverse of the strategy they set out a couple of years ago? Yes. So I also touched on this last week in the live. I think maybe it was somewhere else. Anyway, so yes, it was quite a surprise in some ways. For those who don't know, is Norwegian, maybe last year even, they made, when they did one of their results, the fact that they were going to significantly increase solar cabins, particularly focused on the Norwegian cruise line. But in this most recent results that came out, they said that they are focusing way more on family. Also, as I was saying a little bit earlier, on shorter cruises, those are proving to be very profitable for them, very popular, particularly in the Caribbean. They're putting more capacity in the Caribbean. And they were going to then reduce the number of solar cabins across their 3 brands. So that's Norwegian Cruise Line, Oceania, which is my next trip I'm on, and on Regent. So they are, and I think it's quite a surprise, because up until then, Norwegian had really lent into solos. And they had said they were going to start, on a lot of their ships, they have the solo, to the Haven, I've forgotten what it's called now. Anyway, where all the solar cabins are, they're all kind of insides, they're very small, with a little solar lounge, but they were going to have more permutations of solar. So I think it's really disappointing. Now, hopefully what they will do, which they imply they will do, we will see, is focus more on solo deals. So I must say, on this trip I'm on now, which I am on solo, we've been getting lots of promotional leaflets from the Future Cruise salespeople. And they did send around a very long list of sailings with solo, low solo supplement deals. So hopefully that will be the way that they do it. But yes, definitely done it. Someone giving some tips on the VPN. Let's have a look. Margot, good, saying the events we planned last time were a lot of fun. Well, that's good to know, because I'm actually planning the ones for the next group cruise. So the advantage I had with the last group cruise is not that many people that were on the first group cruise were on the second group cruise. So some of the tried and tested things that I'd used on the first group cruise, I was able to use on that group cruise. But now there's quite a lot of people that have either been on one or two. So I'm having to change all the quizzes and things that we've done. So that's, but I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas on that. Lots of people asking questions around the gig sky. Margot making the point that met some friends. Oh yes, Jeffrey's used the AT&T package. And that'd work quite well, because I think you'd use the AT&T package. I know you were definitely using it when we were on the Canadian group cruise, and it seemed to me that would work well. So that's good. That's good to know. Let's yes, people talking about how frosty it is. Let's have a look. Again, just trying to write the word question so I don't miss your question. LK 55. We're scheduled for the spend in 2 weeks when she sails from Barbados. So I think is that the one where you're heading down to South America? Or I can't remember. I know that the ship is ultimately heading to South America quite soon. What would you recommend for the onboard ship experience as a must-see restaurant to eat or do while on board? Okay, so hopefully you've locked in your bookings, because they do fill up really quickly. So you get to go to Compass Rose, not Compass Rose, I'm talking nonsense. You get to go to Chartreuse, which is the French restaurant, Pacific Rim, which is the Asian restaurant, and Prime 7, which is the steakhouse. And you get to go to those at least once. So hopefully you've locked those in. Now, what I would say is, if you can, do this earlier in your cruise if you haven't done them before, and then try and negotiate to get additional ones. So I have met people on here that I went to dinner the other night with some people that I met that follow the channel, and that was their third trip to Pacific Rim, for example. They really like it. Now, I know if you're in certain grades here, you can go as often as you want, but generally they have a person in the booking office. So if there's any you want to go to more than once, go and negotiate. They're pretty good at trying to do that. The other thing I would say is I quite like going to Setimari. So there is La Veranda, which is the buffet for breakfast and for lunch. But they don't have a buffet at night, which I wish they did have some casual dining option, but they don't. And it turns into an Italian restaurant. I do find Setimari quite good. Now with Setimari, it can be very, very popular. So it's good to plan to go early, like when it opens at 6:30, if you like eating early, because you're guaranteed to get a seat. But if you try to go sort of the 7:30, whatever peak time, it can be a little bit challenging. So those, when it comes to dining, I mean, Compass Rose, I quite like Compass Rose. I know some people are less keen on Compass Rose on the discussion here. I quite like the food in Compass Rose. What's quite good is they don't have an app, but on the television, which I'm pointing to, which you can't see, but anyway, every day they put the menus up there, so that's worth having a look at. So in terms of things to do, is what's proved phenomenally popular on this trip is they have, if you take part in all the quizzes, the trivia, the various games they do, and you collect points for merchandise, which ends today. That's really popular, very sociable. I don't get involved in that, but so many people that I met on here and talked to, they go to all of those, and it seems quite generous, the sort of merchandise you get. They're very generous with the points. So if that's the sort of thing you like, particularly if you're very sociable, that's definitely something I would do. The shows are fine. They're okay. The guest artists, they've been quite strong on here. But is there anything else I would recommend? Those are really, I think, the things that I would probably recommend. As you know, the daily program is relatively light unless you're into trivia, games, and all that sort of stuff. Jeff, I booked a Serenity Suite on Splendor for the next repositioning cruise next March. The balcony seems to be somewhat wider on the trailing edge as the ship gets wider. Is this okay? So the balcony is not a bad size actually on here. Yeah, but what I've noticed is I think what you're saying is on the ship, there's these little bits that jut out. I think on either side, like the cabin next to me, I can sort of see into the balcony because it's a bigger, longer balcony. And I think it is a Serenity Suite as well, from being nosy when I walk past. It looks like it from looking in. So you're right, it does seem those little bits that jut out do seem a little bit bigger. I also noticed that they have lounges on there. I don't have a lounge on. I just got chairs and a table. So I think those more jutty out ones are the thing to do, if that's a technical term. Right, so we've done that. Right, so Warren's asking a question which cut off. You're on Splendor. Do you see a difference from nah? So add that in. Oh, Navigator. Okay. Warren, it is basically 100% different in reality. So Navigator is Navigator is kind of an outlier. So Navigator was originally built as sort of a Russian spy ship thing. Then at the end of the Cold War, it got the partly built hull eventually got sold and was built up. So it's a very completely different layout. It only holds 430 or 450 passengers. Completely different layout. The cabin, the decor, the look and the feel is similar. Some of the restaurants are the same, so they've got, it's still called Compass Rose and so on and so, completely different. What is the same, but if you go on Splendor, Voyager, Grandeur, Explorer, basically that is sort of the same layout. The decor is kind of different. A few things are slightly different, but those ships are very similar. So like having been on Navigator, Explorer, and Splendor, it all feels just familiar. I know where everything is because it's all in the same place. Navigator completely different. Rashika, would you consider Iceland a bucket list cruise? Absolutely. Also, there's a Regent cruise next April, which will dock in Alexandria for 3 days. Will this give good insight into Egypt? So yes, Iceland absolutely is a fascinating place to go. I do have a video, which I did a long time ago, but I haven't updated because it's still valid, where I do have Iceland as one. It's a fascinating place to go, but make sure you do a full circumnavigation. And secondly, as you're sort of implying, is do it on a smaller ship, because there are some ports in Iceland that restrict the size of ship that goes in there, or the number of passengers per day. So you want to go on a smaller ship. So I know your Oceanias, Viking, Regent, and so on. They do some very nice circumnavigations. So in terms of docking in Alexandria, I know they do some excursions where you can go to like Luxor and so on. So it probably will give you a good insight, but it's only going to give you it's going to give you a good insight. And particularly if you've got those overnights, you should get a chance to, and it's quite a distance, but it will give you, if you're there for 3 days, it will give you a chance to see quite a lot. I haven't looked at the excursions in detail, but I know what some I have seen some of those. Heike is booked on Queen Mary 2 for Transatlantic cruise next October. And I just found out there'll be an Abbey Road event voyage. What does that mean? I haven't heard of the Abbey Road event. I've only heard, so what Queen Mary do on the Transatlantics is they do have a couple of themes. So they've just had Fashion Week. In fact, a friend of mine was on the Fashion Week one. They've had some theatre-based ones, some West End-based ones. Now, Abbey Road obviously is the famous recording studio. So, with the Beatles, with their famous album with them walking on the zebra crossing, but there's a lot of big artists have recorded in Abbey Road. So I'm guessing it's kind of be music themed. Normally what they do, Heike, when they do those themes is they will get so on the Fashion Week, they have, fashion design and stuff. They'll have events, fashion shows. When they did the sort of West End one, they had some West End performers on, and they would give all the talks would be themed around that. There would be the guest artists would all do that. So without that would be my sense of that. So it's not heavily. It doesn't completely take over because everyone can take part. So the advantage with, sometimes when they've got a themed event on a cruise ship, events venues kept getting closed. The advantage with those Fashion Week and some of the other themed ones is it's open to everybody. It's not a sort of like a group cruise as such. So ZZZ Land, how would you go about booking if someone wanted to join one of your group cruises? We're in Canada. So ZZZ Land, what I do with my group cruises is I restrict the amount of people I go on my group cruise. So my aim is to have no more than 70 people on a group cruise because I found that is an optimal number. So what I do with my group cruises is I launch them first as kind of a perk if you're a Patreon member. So I launch them as to the patrons first, and I give them a booking window. And then if it doesn't get sold out through patrons and stuff, and then I open it to the public. Now, my last 2 group cruises never got opened more publicly because it got sold out from the patron side. Now, and I've decided I still want to keep it capped because I want to make sure that I can engage with people. And I found that's about the right number. So we do actually take bookings above that because I've learned that you get about 20% of people canceling from because they're quite far ahead. So there's 2 key things you can do is the patrons always get booking priority, and then, but I will post about it on social media. I'll talk about it on these live streams when it's coming. So I'll normally announce them, and I'll tell you what date it's going on sale. So that's the key way. At the moment, I don't have any more group cruises scheduled, so I will review that after this next group cruise. So at the moment, you're not missing out on anything. In terms of the way it works, though, is they're all booked. When the booking goes, they're all handled through one travel agent, which is normally, for them, has been Sarah. So I launch it with a specific way to book via Sarah. But there aren't any currently thing. But keep an eye on social media and on here. Caroline, good to see you here as always. With all the traveling you do, spending many weeks away throughout the year, do you miss home? What will you do when you may not be able to travel so much in years to come? This is rather gloomy of you. So, Caroline, so see, what's very interesting, Caroline, is I have always, since I was kind of in my 30s, been away from home a lot. So when I had a European job, I had a global job. So I was always been away, 2 or maybe 3 weeks a month when I was working in my corporate life. So I'd always used to, and certainly with home life and with friends and with Mark and so on, we've always had a rhythm where I'm away. So I'm very used to being away. So actually now I'm much more in control of when I'm away, because I plan all my own trips, I pay for all my own trips, so I decide when I go, how long I'm away for, and I always make sure that I've got time at home. I also sort it out, because I plan way ahead, there's times of the year when it works better for me to be away. Say Mark's got board meetings or has work events or travel or whatever. So I can basically pace it so it works best for being away and not being away. Also, what I found very helpful is with technology now, with being able to FaceTime, Messenger FaceTime, and whatever, you can also be much more connected with home. I am very obsessed with traveling, and one of the drivers I think people know is I've always been obsessed with traveling. When I was diagnosed in 2012, when I was diagnosed with cancer and went through chemo, that gave me another sense of to keep going, and to just keep doing things. So I've been in remission since 2012, but always aware that I'm only in remission. So I want to see as much as I possibly can and just keep moving, as it were. But you're right. So in terms of when I won't be able to travel as much, I will probably just enjoy, maybe find new ways of enjoying being at home. I love going to the theatre. I love going to see shows and stuff like that. So I probably will shift into doing even more of that, that kind of stuff, but probably travel more, pottering around, if you like, within the UK. The advantage also being in London is, even if you don't want to be flying, you've got Eurostar, which is expanding and stuff. So, but you're right, I think, and probably just watch lots of shows, both on television and stuff. But you're right, it's something we all have to think about. So when I can do it, as long as I can do it, I will keep doing it, I guess, is the thing. Anthony asking about solo-friendly lines. In reality, not really. In reality, cruise lines are much more focused on families. And the reason for that is, you can get 3 or 4 people in a cabin, which is obviously way more appealing. But in terms of solo friendly, you've got, things like Virgin have solo cabins. I think, it's more what lines are tending to do is you can find lots of low solo supplements and deals at shoulder time. So going in and out of the Med season, going in and out of the Caribbean season kind of stuff. But, there aren't any massively solo friendly lines in reality. It's not a focus for lines. Unfortunately, from a budget perspective, is some of the most solo friendly at the moment are the most expensive lines. Crystal, Regent, Silversea, they do a lot of solo deals, but which is still, for most solo travelers, is way out of their budget, because even if you've got a 20% or 15% supplement, it's still a lot of money per night, which is way out of people's budgets. Once you talk about those mass market lines, which is more affordable for most people, gives the most options. Norwegian, Carnival, Royal Caribbean. Not so much, and not so many solo deals, unfortunately. I do have a video around the different sites and things that offer solo deals. Vacations to Go is always a good default. They have a solos section on there, which they will put wherever there's solo deals on there across all lines. So from your more affordable lines to your kind of crazy expensive lines, they have those. Right, so we're rapidly out of time. Let me see if I can quickly churn through some questions before we wrap up. You've always present for traveling to Japan in October. What other months would you recommend if adding stops in Hong Kong and Singapore? So I also did Japan in sort of March time. It's a little bit cold, but it's great weather that sort of time for Hong Kong and Singapore. So the advantage of going sort of into April, whilst Japan is quite cold, you get to see the cherry blossoms, but it's very nice weather, Hong Kong, Singapore. You are starting to head into, I guess, quite soon into the sort of monsoony area, so much more rainy. But I had a great time in Hong Kong and Singapore, that sort of March time, and a lot of people go for the apple blossoms. Good to know that the audio has been okay. I haven't seen that, Dennis. Have they stopped using the cloth bags for laundry? I'm assuming you mean for laundry, or do you mean the Club Orange bags? I don't know, but I'm going on Holland America, as I mentioned, twice next year. Right, so we have rapidly run out of time. Let me one quick question. Do you think Princess will sell or redo Princess Key? I see someone notified of a change of attendance. I think they might revamp Celebration Key, but you're right. Celebration Keys, they've obviously spent an absolute fortune on updating Celebration Key. So I guess they want more ships to go there. I'm just wondering whether they will redo it, because all these lines need more private and beach clubs. So you should probably know Royal Caribbean are launching a couple of beach clubs in the Caribbean. They've got the one in Costa Maya coming, got the other one in Bahamas coming, and they've got apparently another one in Bahamas that they have some rights on. And then they're also launching beach clubs now in the Med to cope with bigger ships and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see if they're going to redo it. Because what they did with Half Moon Key, which is the Holland America one, they've now created a separate space so Carnival ships can call there. So I suspect they're redeveloping and finding ways of making the islands kind of more multi-purpose. So I've just seen Roxy giving a super sticker there. Thanks very much for that. Right, so we have churned through. I'm running out of time. I will be back next weekend. I'll be back home. I come on Wednesday, so I'll be doing a live stream. It might be an hour later, so keep an eye out for that timing. Thanks so much for joining me. My video this week is about Silver Sea, so take a look at that. Thanks for your questions, and have a great rest of the weekend, and take care.